The alarms were screaming. Guards were running in every direction, their radios crackling with panic. In the corner of the Rikers Island cell block, an inmate named Marcus Reed lay face down on the floor, not moving. His cellmate, trembling and wide-eyed, kept shouting, "He's not breathing! I told you something was wrong!" But no one seemed to listen. A few officers looked inside the cell, then turned away, whispering among themselves. Moments later, a nurse rushed in, only to stop at the door. One of the senior officers, a tall man with a cold stare, blocked her path. "We'll handle it," he said firmly. "You didn't see anything." She hesitated, staring at Marcus's lifeless body, then lowered her eyes and walked away. By morning, the prison report said Marcus Reed died of natural causes, but inside Rikers, everyone knew that wasn't true. And what happened next would shake the entire prison system. 2 weeks earlier, Marcus was still alive, sitting on his bunk, staring at the cracked ceiling of his cell. The noise of shouting inmates and clanging metal doors never stopped at Rikers Island. He was only 28, locked up for a non-violent drug charge, but every day inside felt like a fight to stay human. His new cellmate, Darnell, was a quiet man who kept to himself. "Keep your head down," Darnell told him one night. "Don't make enemies, and don't trust the guards." Marcus nodded, but he had already learned that lesson. The officers who were supposed to protect them often turned their heads when things got ugly. A week into his stay, Marcus witnessed something that haunted him. An older inmate, Jamal, beaten badly by 2 officers inside a hallway where cameras were broken. The next day, Jamal was gone. Word spread fast that he was sent to the infirmary, but nobody ever saw him again. The rumor was that Jamal had died, and the officers had covered it up. Marcus wanted to speak up. He wanted to tell the truth, but the last guy who tried to report a guard had been found unconscious in the showers the next morning. So, Marcus stayed quiet, until one night he couldn't anymore. That night, there was a fight in the mess hall. 2 inmates throwing punches, trays flying, guards storming in. Everyone was forced to the floor. But Marcus saw one of the guards, Officer Kane, kick a handcuffed man in the ribs until he stopped moving. Kane noticed Marcus staring. Their eyes locked for a moment. Then Kane smiled. Later that night, Marcus found a note slipped under his cell door. It read, "Keep quiet if you want to live." He showed it to Darnell, who whispered, "Man, you need to let that go. You don't mess with them. Not here." But Marcus couldn't let it go. He started writing letters, one to his lawyer, another to the warden, describing what he'd seen. He hid them in his Bible, planning to mail them during visitation. The next morning, his Bible was gone. When he asked about it, one of the guards laughed. "Maybe God took it," the guard said, smirking. That same night, Marcus heard footsteps outside his cell. He saw shadows move and heard his name whispered through the bars. His heart raced. Suddenly the cell door opened. Officer Kane and another guard stepped inside. "You think you can make trouble for us?" Kane said quietly. "Let's take a walk." Darnell tried to stop them, shouting, "Leave him alone!" But a baton hit the bars hard, silencing him. They dragged Marcus down a dark hallway where no cameras worked. The sounds of their boots echoed off the walls. Somewhere behind them, another inmate screamed for help, but the sound was swallowed by the noise of metal doors slamming shut. Then came a loud thud. A few minutes later, Kane walked out of that hallway alone, breathing heavily, his gloves in his hand. Back in the cell block, the inmates fell silent. Darnell stared at the empty bunk across from him, knowing something terrible had happened. But what he didn't know, what no one yet knew, was that Marcus's death wouldn't stay hidden forever. Someone else had seen what happened. Someone was ready to talk, and that person was already being watched. 3 days after Marcus's death, the whispers spread like wildfire through Rikers Island. Some inmates said he had taken his own life. Others said the guards had handled him after lights out. But those who really knew Marcus, like Darnell, didn't believe the official story for a second. The prison warden ordered a quick internal review. "No evidence of foul play," the report said. Case closed. But Darnell couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Marcus's empty bunk and the blood stain near the vent that no one had cleaned. One afternoon during lunch, a young officer named Rivera slipped Darnell a folded piece of paper. "You didn't get this from me," she whispered. When Darnell opened it later in his cell, his hands shook. It was a copy of a report, one that listed Marcus Reed's cause of death as blunt force trauma. But that line was crossed out in red ink and replaced with cardiac arrest. Someone had changed it. Darnell felt his stomach twist. Rivera must have known it too. That's why she looked so nervous. He decided to keep the paper hidden inside his mattress, even though he knew that if anyone found it, he'd be in danger. That night, Vera didn't show up for her usual rounds. Word came the next morning that she had been transferred to another facility. No one saw her leave. No one heard from her again. The next week, a new inspector arrived, sent by the Department of Corrections. His name was James Porter, and unlike the others, he didn't seem scared of anyone. He walked through the cell blocks, asking quiet questions, taking notes. "I'm here to make sure the truth comes out," he told Darnell during their first meeting. "Whatever you know, tell me. No one will touch you." Darnell hesitated, remembering what had happened to Marcus, and to Jamal before him. But when he saw the inspector's steady eyes, he decided to speak. He told Porter everything: the threats, the beatings, the missing Bible, and the night Marcus disappeared down the hallway. Porter wrote it all down carefully. "You did the right thing," he said. "If what you're saying is true, this place has bigger problems than anyone knows." The next morning, the prison went into lockdown. No one was told why. The yard was empty, the hallways silent except for the echo of boots. Rumors said the inspector had gone missing after leaving the facility that night. His car was found parked outside the gate, with the engine still running. Inside, the guards acted like nothing had happened. Days turned into weeks. The official story on Marcus Reed's death stayed the same: natural causes. The file was closed, sealed, and buried. Darnell felt like he was trapped in a nightmare he couldn't wake from, but something inside him wouldn't let go. One rainy night, as thunder rolled over the island, Darnell sat by his cell door, staring into the darkness. Then he heard it, a faint knock from the vent above him. Tap, tap, tap. At first he thought he was imagining it, but then a voice whispered through the metal, "You're not alone. We saw what they did." The voice came from another inmate in the next block, someone who had witnessed the same thing Marcus saw before he died. "We're keeping records," the voice said. "They think they can bury the truth, but we have proof." Darnell felt a spark of hope and fear at the same time. He didn't know who these people were or how they were collecting evidence, but he knew one thing: the truth about Marcus's death wasn't going to stay hidden forever. Weeks later, a newspaper headline hit the front page: "Scandals at Rikers, deaths, cover-ups, and broken promises." The article revealed everything: names of officers, falsified reports, and proof of abuse hidden for years. Pictures of Marcus Reed flashed across every TV screen in New York. Protesters stood outside the Rikers gate, chanting for justice. Inside the prison, tension exploded. Inmates banged on their cell doors, shouting Marcus's name. Guards tried to calm them down, but the rage had already spread. For the first time, The truth had escaped the island. That night, as sirens wailed outside the prison walls, Darnell sat on his bunk, looking out through the tiny window at the city lights. For the first time, he felt something close to peace. Marcus hadn't died for nothing. But deep down he knew the fight wasn't over, because the same men who silenced Marcus were still there, watching, waiting, and they weren't done yet.